Hi. All right, so today is going to be an experiment, and we're going to see how this works. Kind of got inspired to draw and talk at the same time, a la Bob Ross. Although he's painting and I'm sketching on an iPad with my Apple Pencil. And then perhaps switching cameras and showing what I've shown on social media, which is my hand doing a time lapse of creating the line work. And so for today, I'm going to be doing basically the pencils digitally in non-photo blue. I'm going to print that out, put it down on my desk, and then ink over it, scan it, take the blue out, just have the nice crisp, clean artwork, line work, and then do some digital color and call it a day. So let's see how this goes. Always daunting to look at a blank page, but I'm gonna try to also put it somewhere on the screen. We'll see how that goes. So maybe it's gonna be here, maybe it's gonna be here, I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be right in front of my face. Also gonna continue to drink my coffee and my LaCroix. So here goes. The main inspiration for this one is from a creative visualization that I did yesterday with my spiritual teacher, which was a visual of me resisting a tornado of energy trying to pull me forward and really not feeling like I wanted to go along with it. It reminded me of when I took the medicine of ayahuasca and had this experience where there was a vortex that was inviting me in and I was not ready to enter. So in this case, there was a transmutation that took place, which was that the highly energetic tornado force, through creative visualization, was tamed, so to speak, was transformed, transmuted into another element, in this case, water. And so I'm going to try to translate what I saw in my mind's eye onto the page, and also talk while I'm drawing, which is not something that I've done before, so maybe I'm just gonna be silent a lot, I don't know. But then maybe that's when this will come and cover my face because I'm not talking. The other thing that it reminds me of, let me see if I can start. Let me start and start talking at the same time. Let's try. The other thing that it reminds me of is that I went and saw Avatar: The Last Airbender, the film that just got released. There was a limited release that happened here in Los Angeles and in New York. Sadly, it didn't have its full theatrical release, which was, I believe, the plan prior. But that show's incredible. I got into it during the pandemic and I just love the message behind it. But very fitting that there was this element of elements within my visualization. I think it's very common for us to get inspired by life and from things that we've seen. And for me in particular, I love film and TV, and that's often a big source of inspiration for me. Okay, I am not doing much while I'm talking, so I'm gonna draw a little bit, and then let's see, maybe a little bit later on, I'll be able to add more. Yeah, this is the hardest part of the process, I would say, which is coming up with a layout. A lot of people will thumbnail it. I don't know. I go back and forth on that. Sometimes I enjoy it. Other times I feel like there's nothing like just starting and allowing whatever comes through to come through. I guess that's also the beauty of working digitally, because you can erase, you can resize, you can move things around, especially for the penciling part. I still do love the tactile nature of inking. So that's why I like doing this hybrid approach. It's funny because the visual that I got yesterday was also, I think, inspired by Wile E. Coyote, in the sense that it was a larger than life depiction of intensity. This is always a fun part of the process. I am being facetious. I am being sarcastic, in the sense that there's a lot of working through self-doubt, just going with it, trusting that the creative process will take over, and that this line work will clean itself up through your hand. Yeah, the main visual that I got, which I don't know if I'm actually going to translate one-to-one, was like the feet being stuck in the ground, like trying to hold back from this like force that's pulling itself in. Yeah, I do think that there's the beauty of doing thumbnails, because then you figure out all the layouts on a smaller scale, and then you can just focus on execution and refinement. But, you know, I didn't start with the traditional ways of doing things. I very much started with just going straight for the line work and using, on Photoshop, the brush tool, doing a first pass, and then instead of doing another layer, I would just erase and keep on sculpting the lines, essentially. So it wasn't until my MFA program that I learned more of this traditional methodology. So I think I kind of sometimes just default to my original process. No, that's nice. Maybe there's gonna have to be some fast forwarding that happens. I don't know if you want this to me, it's not. Sometimes it helps also just to kind of work on multiple things all at the same time, so it becomes a holistic picture instead of getting so narrowed in on one detail and then forgetting about the fact that there's a whole page to be done. I feel like the same way of working when you're doing a big project. Sometimes it's nice to have multiple projects happening at the same time, or many pages happening at the same time, so that you can kind of follow the inspiration, follow the motivation. If one thing doesn't call to you or make you feel great, you can move on to the next. You know, there's something so beautiful about creative visualization as like a tool. Really helps me. Yeah. hard to explain, but energetically, I feel like it really does shift things, especially for people that have very clear pictures in their mind's eye. To be able to work with whatever's bothering you in a metaphorical, more abstract way, I think is one way into healing. At least that's my take. Yeah, the beautiful thing about this visualization yesterday was there was like this very intense resistance, and then the energy got transmuted into water. The floor kind of gave way and became a stream. And it was a very buoyant water source. Maybe it had very high salt content, who knows? But then I was carried along, and I could let go and be carried along. And just that shift between those two energy points was so drastic and beautiful. And it made a difference in my body as well. It went from like clenching to relaxing and trusting and giving in to giving in general. Radical acceptance. Also just finished that book, which was very, very good. And I highly recommend it. Tara Brach. I'm figuring out this thing. Yep. I think there's also something about, as an artist, not only seeing it, but then creating it. I think it's a similar parallel I would draw between listening to a professor or a teacher give a lecture and taking notes, or having a thought and writing it down in your journal. It works its magic differently. That translation between one form to another, I think, just reinforces it in a beautiful way. This is an interesting part of the process because it's one that you could honestly just be stuck in forever, which has happened to me many a time. Where you just want things to be 100% perfect. I think that's also why I really love inking analog, because there's a term that I learned in my MFA comics program, which is super official, called Zoom-itis, which is something that happens when you're working digitally and you have this infinite canvas. In some cases, you're limited by pixels, sure, but you can zoom in and you can see details that when it's on the printed page, when it's posted online or on social media that other people can't see. Sure, people can zoom in on their phones, I get that, but focusing on those details distracts you from the larger picture. It's a time suck, a time drain, and also it's a distraction because no one's gonna really see it. And also there's so much beauty in these very small details being organically human and not so refined and overly worked that it feels static and flat. There's an energy and a life to a line that's a little wobbly or a little imperfect. And when you're zooming in, especially if you're doing it with the line work pass, the final pass of the pen, it can feel very dead, I think is the best word. There's an aliveness that happens when you see the human hand as part of this process. Okay. I think it's looking pretty good. He says, trying to convince himself. Cool. Okay, so now I'm gonna print it out and go into the next part of the process, and probably change camera angle because I'm gonna use this guy up here to show the time lapse. So let's see what comes next. Okay, so I've printed it out. Starting the time lapse right now. This is my handy dandy setup. I'm using my old iPhone mini, which I've never done before, for the time lapse because I'm usually using this phone. But this one's way better for camera capture, video capture, front facing. So we're gonna see how this goes. Is it done? Close enough? Okay, so inking is done. Now, scan this in, bring it into Photoshop, take out the blue, export it back out to my iPad into Procreate, and then do the color pass. Are we gonna video while we do that? Sure, why not? We're gonna video the whole thing. It's a lot of footage. And maybe that's the conclusion we'll come to at the end of this. But for now, let's just keep on going. So I'll see you from another camera angle. Okay. Now we're at the final step of the process, the grand finale, so to speak. And that is, now that I have my line work back in my iPad on Procreate, I will fold in color and give this a little bit more of life. So I'm gonna have the time lapse at the same time, somewhere, and let's see how this goes. Definitely already having some learnings from this process. I don't know if I need to show myself the whole time. But this is the beauty of learning, right? And we're back. Don't know if you could tell, but I got a little frustrated there at some point. It's taking a lot longer than I was expecting it to take, which, is to be expected in the sense that I was doing a full 8.5 by 11 page and also documenting, which is a whole other thing. Anyway, it was an experiment, well worth the time investment. I think there's a lot of learnings. Maybe I won't video myself the whole time, or just portions of it, or, we'll see. The next step is going to be editing this all together, which I think will be another learning experience in and of itself. But that being said, maybe I'll put it on the screen, or maybe it's just going to be in this video. Not sure yet. As I said, this is an experiment, so we are learning. But so cool to see the full progression of things, right? So this is the page with the non-photo blue, digital drawing printed out, and then my line work over top in pen, ink, and then it becomes this, which is wild. And this is even not like a full best quality print, but even then, like, just seeing it with color is so fun. And this is the part of the process that makes it super worthwhile, makes the process feel worthwhile. But I probably will put the digital version of it over as well, just so you can see the fully saturated colors and whatnot. But so cool. Very excited about this. And yeah, that's kind of the process I go through. Yeah. Till next time. Ciao.